it's one of those scenarios where you maybe won't earn that many points to be able to actually use the points if you just take a couple of flights during this promo. But you can always top that account off with your Amex, so you won't really have to worry about stranding points. Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric, checking in from Scottsdale, Arizona, and talking to AJ in Budapest. And today we are going to be talking about Rio de Janeiro and specifically the Olympic Games that are coming up this August. Really exciting time to be visiting Brazil. AJ and I were there for the World Cup and had an amazing experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect in Rio this time around for the Olympics, figure out whether they're going to be ready, and if not, what you might be able to do about it to make sure you still have a great experience. And we also have some news and updates from around the travel hacking world. So looking forward to getting into it. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing well, man. I know that we always start off with the weather. I always somehow default to weather because obviously I'm checking in from Budapest. Weather still sucks, but the city is still a great city. All right, moving past annoying things like bad weather, 33 Fahrenheit and raining is just the worst. Getting into news and updates. So the first piece of news and updates is a credit card offer that looks like it is going away. So this is actually going to be right after the show is published. The City Thank You Premier sign-up bonus appears that it's going to be going off of that $50K offer. And that's going to be January 28th. So that's a day after this episode goes live. So if you're listening to it and you're pondering as if you're going to get this card, now is the time to get this card.
So the key benefits for this card are going to be that you get 3x points on travel, 2x on dining and entertainment, and 1x on everything else. So there's some potentially pretty useful bonus categories here. The points do transfer to some airlines, but not any US-based carriers. Probably the best programs are going to be Singapore and Air France, but 50,000 points is a really nice offer, and we don't know what the next one's going to be, but probably lower. So, certainly worth considering if you haven't done a city application recently and you're looking to diversify and get some additional points. Okay, so the next piece of news is a double points promotion on select routes with Virgin America. This is going to be for anything booked between now and February 29th. Travel doesn't have to be in that window, but the time to book is through the 29th of February. And basically, Virgin has a revenue-based earning scheme. So typically, you earn 5 points per dollar on every dollar spent. And with this promotion, you're going to get 10 points per dollar at the basic level. So you're just going to double that base earning. And remember, with Virgin, the Elevate program redeems at a fixed value on their own flights. So if you're using your points to book with Virgin America, you're going to get a fixed value of 2.2 cents per point, which is actually pretty high. Most of the other programs don't do fixed value quite that high. So these are points that could potentially be pretty useful to save you on airfare in the future. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that the chart is zone-based for some of their partners. So Virgin America is part of the Virgin Group. So you've got Virgin Atlantic going to Europe and Virgin Australia. And so both of those are zone-based charts where you're looking at, business class redemptions could definitely be a good deal there. I think the rate to Australia one way is about 80,000, which is on par with most of the other programs. And then they're also partners with Singapore and Emirates. So there's some opportunities there. And then last but not least, Elevate is a program that's also a transfer partner of Amex. So it's one of those scenarios where you maybe won't earn that many points to be able to actually use the points if you just take a couple of flights during this promo, but you can always top that account off with your Amex, so you won't really have to worry about stranding points. So certainly worth it if you've got Virgin American routes that you might be able to double dip on your current points earning.
Yeah, really good call, and just another reason to be diversified so you don't leave those points hanging. Moving on to the next piece of news is a Delta status challenge. Now, first you need to know that you are supposed to be invited by a corporate travel program to be eligible for this, but most business travelers in the U.S. do have some type of relationship with Delta. So contact whoever you need to contact to be invited by your corporate travel program. And here's the status challenge that is currently being offered. So one round trip will get you 6 months of silver status, and you will get 5,000 redeemable miles. 3 round trips gets you 12 months of gold status and 10,000 redeemable miles. And if you get up to 6 round trips, that's 12 months of platinum status and another 10K in redeemable points. Now, Eric, if I'm understanding this correctly, if you do your round trip, you get your 5,000 points and your 6 months of silver. But if you take 2 additional trips, then you get bumped up to gold and you get an additional 10,000 points. So that'll get you in total for this status challenge 15,000 points.
Yeah, that's as far as it says on the page, that seems to be the way that the promotion is going to work. So your redeemable miles that you get as a bonus are going to be stacked. So definitely could be worthwhile. The only thing I'm not sure about is whether this promotion is going to be honored if you sign up without being invited or part of a corporate travel program. So like AJ said at the beginning, definitely if you travel for work, and Delta flights sometimes are a part of that, you should absolutely find out if they can invite you or if you're eligible to sign up through that method. The page doesn't stop anybody from signing up, but you never know. You don't want to buy flights just to earn status via this promotion and then find out you were excluded. So take a good look at that, and hopefully that'll be helpful for some of you guys to get bumped up to gold or platinum status.
Yeah, one final thing on this too. This is if this is something you go after, this is a nice opportunity to parlay your Delta status into Air Berlin status, which gives you some one world perks. Because last thing I knew, Air Berlin was doing a status match. I think we actually mentioned it a few episodes ago, but that I believe is still in play.
Wow, okay, so that sounds really good. In addition, one world status is potentially available. Do you know anything else about the process for getting that to work?
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of it now. I'll need to dig up the email address, but I believe it's status match at top bonus, whatever Air Berlin's domain is. But I do know that they're somewhat strict on the proof of status, because I am obviously in Europe right now and I don't have my Delta status card, my physical card on me, and they actually needed a copy of that. I went through the channels you're supposed to go through to get the status match, and they told me we can match your status, but not on what you sent me, because I sent them just a screenshot of logged into my Delta account with my SkyMiles number and my status, which was on the screen, but they actually needed a copy of my actual status card. So I'm going to have to sort something out with Delta, or maybe have friends or family back at home receive that and take a picture of it for me, something. But as of a week ago, the status match was still in play.
Alive and well. Well, that's great to know, and certainly I can see where that would be required, or where they'd be taking some action to confirm, since there's a lot of value that can be had by doing the status match, and probably pretty easy to Photoshop your status on just a page. So I imagine they are looking for something that can give a little bit more confirmation that you actually have the status you say you do.
Yeah, it was. I felt it was reasonable of them.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the Chase Ink card. Just wanted to add a quick note about the 5 applications in 24 months rule. So if you've been listening for any period of time, you probably know that Chase's Ultimate Rewards points earning cards, like the Chase Sapphire, have a 5 application rule, that if you've done more than 5 or more applications in the last 24 months, you're going to be automatically denied. So they're looking for people that don't have a ton of inquiries. And it seems that the business cards are actually not yet subject to this rule. So we originally thought that this was happening with both the Sapphire and the Chase Ink card, and it looks like, at least with some people, have been getting through without having that rule apply. And so there's a post that we're going to link to in the show notes today for Frequent Miler, and he goes over some of the new revelations about this rule. And so bottom line here is it might be a good opportunity to get that 60,000 bonus. The bonus is higher than normal, and it looks like this rule may not be in effect. So more information in the show notes, and I don't know if we mentioned it at the top of the show. So this episode show notes are going to be at abroaders.com/Rio 2016.
Yeah, that is an interesting scoop on that, because I think there's maybe just some misinformation going around, because I don't think we invented that. I think we saw somewhere that the 524 rule was applying for that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, fortunately enough, people have tried to apply and are sharing information about the results that, new folks that are kind of trying to consider whether they should put in that application and do a hard inquiry, or at least finding out a little bit more of what they should expect based on other people's experience.
Yeah. Now, this next piece of news is for all those folks out there that cherish their British Airways 4,500 point redemptions in the US. So this is the last chance to book the 4,500 Avios flights in the US. And you have until February 2nd. And then that price is going to go up to 7,500. So a pretty big increase on that. So if you're looking to take advantage of any of those awards, you need to get those booked up within the next week, because February 2nd, that low price actually goes up to 7,500. That'll be the lowest price on the chart.
Yep. And again, this is just for the short distance flights in the US. So if you're using Avios somewhere else, like Brazil or Asia, you're still going to be able to get those $4,500 point prices for redemptions under 651 miles. So just in the US, but definitely book now. You should be able to book almost through the end of 2016, as long as you know into the future what your travel plans are going to be, and that'll save you some valuable Avios points. That's going to wrap it up for news and updates. We also have a couple of interesting resources to share with you guys, and the first one is something that, AJ, you brought this up to me, and I had never seen it before. It's a website called Nomad List. Tell me a little bit more about how this works.
Yeah, so it's nomadlist.com, and it's essentially an aggregation of not every city in the world, but it's got a lot of cities across the globe, all the continents, and it kind of scores out each city based on whichever criteria is important to you. So, the cost of living, the cost of an Airbnb place, the cost of a hotel, meals, Coke, a beer. And there's other sites that have done this before, but I've been unimpressed when I've referenced the cities I've been in with the resource. And this seems to be a more accurate resource. And I know the guy that's building it is kind of obsessing with it, and he's always updating it and improving it. And they also have other things that are kind of hard to find. So you essentially get to find a city that suits you. So if, woman friendly is important to you, I mean, as sad as that's an actual issue, I mean, they've got a woman friendly score, a gay friendly score, nightlife score, free wireless in the city. So you kind of build out your profile and you set the filters to whatever you're looking for. And this will give you some really nice information on the city. And then there's also like a private community behind it where you can be a member of the conversation about the cities. But as just a front-facing free resource, it's really solid, and I've been impressed with it. I've followed it over the last, I don't know, six months or so, and it's always improving, and the information always seems to be honing in and becoming a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I think just looking at it, the thing that I was most impressed with was how many different places are on here. I figured that there were probably quite a few spots that were sort of more off the chart. I kind of, as I was going through, I saw Florianopolis, Brazil is in there. I see there's a couple of places. Chiang Mai is often a hangout that we've talked about a lot because of how many DC folks are there. There's quite a few cities, so the coverage is super cool. And definitely going to be interesting to look into these and sort of see. I think from what I initially saw, I totally agree that they seem to have done a really solid job. The prices and things seem to reflect what my experience has been for the places I've been.
Yeah, it's a really, really solid tool. Now we're kind of running out of time, but the last thing I want to mention is a pretty cool invention of some friends of ours. It's actually invented by a friend of a brother's. We are getting absolutely no money for this, so don't think that we're trying to sell you something and get a commission. But it's a product that is very small. You can take it anywhere with you, and it's got various utilities. And the product is Gelbos. It's these small little, I believe they're actually made of silicone, and it's meant for the desk jockey, the cubicle worker that's elbows were always on a table and getting worn out. And they're two kind of coaster-sized little gelatin silicone Gelbos that you can alleviate some pain of your elbows. And it's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool story. The guys that created it, our buddy Kyle Kunkel, he's got manufacturing background. He works in Taipei, does some stuff for Dell package engineering. So he had some contacts that could help them get this manufactured and distributed. But really, really cool product. And it's just tiny. You can fit it in your pocket. So it's not going to create any extra travel drag for you. So pretty slick for the Nomad. And it actually serves as a really reliable coaster also on flights because it sticks to the tray and your drink kind of stays on there better than leaving it on the shitty trays, especially in like economy. class.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the utilities Kunkel showed me. It was pretty
That's
effective.
a great, man. Super cool story. I mean, I think this is going really well for them. And so I'm really happy to see that, this is a cool story to me just because it's taking, some connections and experience you have and a problem that certainly exists for me. I got to actually get some of these. And the first time I'm in a place with a good mailing address for long enough to be able to do it, I'm definitely going to order some because it truly is an issue when you're sitting at your computer all day. Your elbows just like they start to hurt. So yeah, really keen. I hope this continues to go well for Kyle and the folks at Jailbows.
Yeah, man, me too. That's it for the news and updates, man. You wanna talk Rio, talk the Olympics.
I do. Before we do that, I do have one piece of listener feedback that I wanted to share. This came from Sydney, and she writes, I wanted to reach out and tell you guys how helpful Abroaders has been to me. A few years ago, I began traveling and recently decided I will be traveling for the long term. I've always been great at finding cheap flights, but the podcast has really helped me understand credit card churning, using miles, and the benefits of different cards. I just booked my flight to leave the US for the long term, and I'll be using miles to position for it. Just wanted to say thanks, Sydney. Thanks a lot, Sydney. Really, really glad that the podcast has been helpful, and we're excited for you with your new decision to be traveling long term. Best of luck.
Yeah, best of luck, Sydney. Always happy to hear that. Thanks for the feedback. That's why we do it, man. That's awesome to hear.
Awesome. All right. Show notes again, broaders.com/Rio 2016. And let's talk Olympics.
Yeah, man. So what we've got is the Summer Olympics. It is being hosted in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It's August 5th through the 21st. And Rio won this bid, I think, like 7 years ago. They beat out Tokyo, Madrid, and Chicago. There's a lot of, the cynics might say there's some bribery going on, which would fit Brazil's current political profile. But nonetheless, it's going to be in Rio, an amazing city. And it's going to be in four main, what they have dubbed clusters. So it's going to be in Barra da Tijuca, Maracanã, which is the famous soccer stadium, Copacabana, one of the fabled beaches, and then a zone I knew nothing about until earlier today, Deodoro. And that's where there's going to be some of the events taking place.
Interesting. Yeah. I also had no idea until we started prepping to talk this over on the show that this was going to be so spread out. I mean, I think that was the biggest takeaway for me is Baja is pretty far to the east, pretty far to the west side of Rio. So if you think about like the famous Copacabana Beach and Ipanema Beach, sort of the parts of Rio that everything, that the city is so well known for, those are kind of what I consider the central area of Rio. Maracanã is like 10 to 15 minutes by car to the north, and Baja is like 20 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, to the west. So definitely going to be interesting to try and get around to these different places. Based on what you've seen so far, does it look like they're going to have this figured out to make it possible to get around the city for so many people?
Yeah, I think so. And the reason that I think it's going to be better than what the critics are spouting off about is because there's a similar criticism before the World Cup that Brazil wasn't ready, that they couldn't handle it, that the security would be an issue, that the public transportation would be an issue. And I wasn't at every city for the World Cup, but you and I, we saw a couple host cities that are not some of the most famous. We were not in Sao Paulo and Rio where they really had the additional resources pumped in. And I thought they did a tremendous job with the World Cup. So the kind of criticism I'm seeing for the Olympics is very similar to what we saw in the World Cup. Brazilians are never known for being ahead of schedule, but they did bring it with the World Cup, and things seem to be fine. And a couple things that they've added to alleviate some of the logistical nightmares that were kind of lurking around is they've added some new public transit. They've got a rapid transit bus that cuts straight from, I believe, Maracanã to Baja, which did not previously exist, and they've got some other lines of the metro. I don't know if they technically call it the metro, but nonetheless, some cable cars, some new bus lines, and some rapid transit bus lines. So I think it is going to be okay. Obviously, it's going to be crowded. It's a huge event for one city, any city in the world to handle. But I would, I'm not buying the critics' stuff right now.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and it's also always, sort of relative. You're not going to see the same ease of transportation as you might had this been held in Chicago or in New York or, another sort of global city that's got more of the infrastructure around transportation. But I also don't think that that's necessarily the only factor. And so we should talk a little bit about Rio as a city. I imagine people probably have some concerns about Portuguese, whether you can get by speaking English. I think that's actually one of the things that I was most impressed with during the World Cup was how many people they had out and around to help folks and were sort of available to speak English and just point you in the right direction. You and I both learned a lot of Portuguese from living in Brazil, but I would say if you don't speak a word of it or even any Spanish, you're probably still in really good shape as far as being able to find somebody that can help you out in Rio.
Yeah, which is not the norm for just traveling to Brazil. I mean, it's Brazil, they speak Portuguese, so you should learn a little bit. But for the major events, I mean, I remember getting off my flight in the World Cup, and there was like a fixer there, hey, where did you come from? Do you speak English? Here's the local map. Here's where the events are going to be. This is the type of stuff that never ever that I saw in Brazil before. But for better or worse, the country's taken some criticism for hosting these events because they're expensive, and the country, like most countries in the world, has more pressing issues. But nonetheless, if it's anything like the World Cup, I think that the language barrier isn't going to be too bad. And I mean, the first time I went to Brazil, I didn't speak a lick of it. You get around fine. Obviously, your experience is a little bit different if you can speak the language, but I don't think that should be a reason that people don't go. I think people are going to be completely fine as far as communicating and understanding where they need to go and having signs labeled properly.
Cool. All right, so let's kind of run through some of the basics. I know we've got, these neighborhoods are split up. We're going to post in the show notes as well some of our resources that we were using to look up where different events are going to be. But let's talk a little bit outside of the Olympics. Some things that if you're making a trip to Rio, there's certainly, very worthwhile to spend some extra time exploring Rio outside of the Olympic Games and stuff. Why don't we give, what would be sort of your top couple of things to do if you had a few days of extra time to spend in Rio?
Okay, well, first off, this is nothing specific, but I firmly believe that Rio is just a magical city, and if you allow yourself to enjoy Rio, even without any actual plans or any conventional sightseeing, you can have an amazing time because Brazil has such a unique culture, and the people are so warm and fun. Just being there and allowing yourself to have a good time, you really can't go wrong. If we're going to zero in on some stuff, obviously the statue of Christ Redeemer, Corcovado, and Sugarloaf Mountain are maybe the number one and two sightseeing destinations on the list, but one that's a little bit further back that I actually prefer, and I've done all of these, is Vista Chinesa. That was we had Freddie take us there like 4 years ago, man. So it's a brilliant view. It was a gift from the Chinese. It's this. It's described as an oriental gazebo made of bamboo, and it's got this just brilliant view overlooking the city where you've got the mountains and the buildings cascading. Amazing spot for a sunset. The sun will set into the water behind Rio skyline. You're kind of nestled up there. And the cool thing I like about this is it's kind of 2-for-1, where it's at the top of Floresta da Tijuca, the largest urban rainforest in the world. So you kind of go up this winding road through a rainforest up to this brilliant view. And if you can time it for sunset, I think that might be one of the best, sunsets I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely a worthwhile visit. Even better if you've got your own vehicle and you can drive up there and spend a little bit of time. But certainly worthwhile to check out Vista Chinesa. There's at least one bus route that does go through Floresta de Tijuca, so there are some transport options. And also, I don't think it would be a super expensive cab ride. Especially if you were splitting the cost with some friends. So that's definitely a recommendation that I would make to somebody visiting for the first time in Rio. A couple of other things that I think are fun and worth checking out as well would be Lapa. If you're looking for nightlife and looking for a great street party and also some really cool bars. So Lapa is kind of in the central district of Rio, and there's a lot of art and a lot of culture that is just sort of centered around Lapa. and you can basically hang out in the street and drink very, very affordable beer and cocktails, and just get to mingle with all the locals, all the people. And there's also, a lot of hostels and accommodation in the area, so you're going to get a really cool mix of people. And then also the bars are awesome. So a lot of times, I think you and I probably most of the time end up just hanging out in the street. But if you go inside, there's live music. There's a ton of different options. There's places that are playing samba. There's places that are playing more traditional Brazilian pop music type stuff. So you can really find sort of whatever you're looking for there. And just a really fun party and a great place to spend some time as far as nightlife in Rio.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, man. My favorite thing about Lapa is it's always there, meaning there's always stuff going on. You can roll into Lapa pretty much 7 days a week and know there's going to be a party there. And I love the duality. You can be on the street with the people. You got some people that maybe can't afford expensive drinks, so they're buying from beer vendors or even bringing their own concoctions from home. Just hang out in the street. Last time I was there, that was not a problem. No one was bothering them. And then you've got some slightly more upmarket places if you want to maybe have a cocktail or a more formal bar or club setting. So you've got it both. So if you're with a group of people and some people want to be casual, wear Havaianas and shorts and just kind of hang out in the street and pound some beers, game on. And then there's also, some bars and clubs and some nicer restaurants that are right there, same spot.
Yeah, another place that's pretty close to Lapa is Santa Teresa, which is the hill that's right above. And that's a very interesting place to explore during the day. There's also quite a few bars, and there's a trolley system. So there's like this sort of San Francisco style cable cars that go up into Santa Teresa. And it's sort of, I guess, kind of labeled as a bohemian neighborhood in Rio, and certainly, just really worth checking out. And if you want to walk between the two, it's the famous staircase that I believe there's a music video. I think I want to say it's something by Snoop Dogg where they feature the Lapa staircase. But it's a really cool kind of connector. So if you're exploring from one to the other, you can cruise up that staircase. And unfortunately, the artist that created that the murals, it's basically tile artwork all the way up this huge staircase. And he was actually found dead a couple of years ago at the foot of this staircase. So some kind of sinister mystery there. Nobody really knows if this was a murder or a suicide. I'm not sure whatever came of that investigation, but certainly the artwork is an incredible sort of legacy to an artist that was very loved in Brazil. So also something worth checking out.
Yeah, man, definitely an iconic spot. Also, I feel like we should mention something really quick, just for the sake of being objective. Brazilian culture is just top. It's amazing. But if there's any foodies out there, there is good food to be had in Brazil, but it's just not that plentiful. So hate to bring the negativity, but my dining experiences in Brazil have not been that of other places in the world. And if you want to go to Brazil just for food, you're probably missing it, and you deserve to not have a great time. But don't get your hopes up. So many people I talk to, oh, how's Brazil? I bet the food was amazing. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of the last thing on my list. I mean, Brazil is amazing, maybe my favorite country in the world, but they're a little bit behind the culinary times.
Yeah, well, or it's just a little bit different. I think it's definitely, first of all, Brazilians really like defending their cuisine. So I would certainly say, hopefully, we don't offend too many of them out there. I think that people that aren't familiar with Brazilian food will find a couple of things pretty interesting. So number one, if you get a chance, try feijão. And this is like a really hearty bean and rice dish that has like a couple of different kinds of meat in it, and it's like a Brazilian staple. So if you're looking for something sort of interesting and culturally unique to Brazil, feijão or feijoada is something you absolutely have to try. And the second one, and this is probably the highlight of every trip that I take to Brazil, is açaí. And so acai, the English translation would be the acai berry, and it's this like really dark purple superfood, really healthy fruit, and they make this sort of slush out of it. It's just like a smoothie almost, and they serve it in a bowl. It's like eating ice cream. It's got to be my favorite culinary thing that exists.
Let me backtrack really quick here. Brazilian food, I actually do enjoy. I think my main qualm is it seems like Brazilians doing non-Brazilian food doesn't. I mean, I know there's great restaurants, it's a big city, but typically, uh, in my opinion, non-Brazilian food made in Brazil has been disappointing, i.e., pizza, Italian, some Japanese. But yes, acai is, I mean, that is an amazing way to start the day. Toss in some granola, banana in there. That is actually that's one of my favorite, breakfast or first meals of the day in the world, which is funny considering how much flack I give Brazil for their food.
Indeed.
All right, so one very important thing that can often be extremely expensive when you're doing these major events is lodging. So if you open the guidebook, conventional wisdom is going to say you're a Westerner, Zona Sul safe, stay in Ipanema, Copacabana, Leblon, or Baja. But contraire, Monfrere, there are other neighborhoods that are safe and that are fun and that are more affordable. And the first one that I would consider a dark horse is Botafogo. It's actually going to be in the Copacabana cluster for the purpose of the Olympics, but Botafogo is an under the radar place that is safe, fun, things to do, and it's kind of in between Ipanema and Centro. So it's a really good spot. And I did a quick Airbnb search, and there was availability throughout the duration of the Olympics, and it was very reasonable. I don't know if this is because Carnival's right now, so they're kind of focused on Carnival prices and haven't jacked up the prices, but there is availability, and it is very, very affordable right now.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite neighborhoods, and definitely going to save you some extra cash. A couple of others that you might want to consider. Flamingo is next to Botafogo, also kind of has that benefit of being centrally located, and you're going to see lower prices than you do in Copacabana and Ipanema. So I think that's probably another nice spot to be. Both of those two also have their own metro stops, and so it's going to be relatively easy to use public transit from those places to get to either the Maracanã zone or the rest of the southern zone where stuff's going to be in the Copacabana region as well.
Yeah, and then Eric mentioned Santa Teresa earlier. That and Lapa will have some Airbnb activity as well. Those are kind of thriving Airbnb markets, and you're still probably going to save based on getting a hotel in Copacabana, Ipanema, or Leblon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the one thing to keep in mind with Lapa versus Santa Teresa, there's a little bit of a trade-off. Lapa is certainly going to be more convenient to get where you want to go in Rio, but it's also going to be a lot louder at night. So if you are planning on getting up early for that 8 a.m. swim event, you probably don't want to be in Lapa unless you're okay with being up all night with all the partying. Santa Teresa is way quieter and it's pretty close. So if you're looking for a little bit more peace, that's probably going to be a better choice for you than being right downtown. And probably most of the accommodation in Lapa is right on top of a bar that's going to be making noise all night.
Yeah, that's true. Getting into logistics and getting around, like we mentioned earlier, Rio did beef up their public transport. I think some of the stuff is still under construction, but the resources in the show notes should be really nice based on where you end up staying or where you want to stay. You can scout out which transit lines will be available and be in action to help you get where you want to go. In my experience, real public transit's been quite safe and fine. You may hear some tips about avoiding the bus at night, but just use your best judgment. I haven't had any issues with transit in Rio, and there's going to be just swarms of people and tourists and other folks there and there will be security. So I don't think people should avoid public transit. I mean, taxis are an option as well, but my experiences have been A-okay with public transport in Rio.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind, I mean, if you're just there for a short period of time, this may not be the biggest deal, but there's a huge cost savings in using public transit over taxis. Number one, the taxi meter, in general, you're going to use a meter when you get in a taxi, so don't agree to any pre-negotiated rates because that's just not how it's done. The Brazilians don't do that, and you should always ask for the meter. But on top of that, just running a normal trip, you can end up paying, $20 to $30 in taxi fees. I would imagine that's going to happen quite a bit with the distance involved in some of these locations. So if you're going from, say, Maracanã to the far western zone, Diodoro, or if you're going to Baja, those are going to be close to $30 cab rides probably, and you can get that same public transit for less than $2. So you are going to save a lot if you're willing to do a little bit of adventure. And I would say that's actually, as much as like I don't love riding in public transit anywhere, but I don't think there's many better places to do people watching and just kind of observe than on a subway or on a bus. That's where you're going to get a real idea about what the everyday people in Rio are up to. And also, you're going to be at this global event where you've got people from all over the world. So I would not give up that opportunity to sit in a cab with somebody who's probably going to give me an extra 15 kilometers of trip just because they think they can get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. The final pieces of logistics or organization that we haven't mentioned is buying tickets. Tickets are going to be expensive. There's no great way to go about it. CoSport.com is the official broker for U.S. fans. There's like 80 different official brokers depending on which country or region. So CoSport.com, we'll link in the show notes, is the official broker for the Americans out there. There will be an aftermarket. I did some research on that. People say that the aftermarket on eBay or any of the other ticket brokerages will be alive, but the scams are rampant. So make sure that you use your best judgment when buying stuff on the aftermarket. But like I said, cosport.com is the official way to buy tickets for the Olympics.
Yeah, I think one other thing, just as far as last minute opportunities, in particular, if you're buying on the ground while you're there, there's it's a really simple thing to do, but it's not always necessarily something you think about, is if you're buying a ticket for an event, make sure you know what the real ticket looks like. So I know I did this at the World Cup in Salvador. My girlfriend and I bought a set of tickets for like $20 each, and it was about 2 minutes after the game had started, so we saved a ton of money. But you want to find somebody that's going to the same event, which you'll see a ton of them outside the stadium. Just ask any random person to show you their ticket so you know exactly what it's supposed to look like. Because I have seen that happen where people, somebody just prints off something that looks official and says the Olympics and whatever event on it, and is out there selling. So really good opportunity to bring a little bit of cash and be in a position to negotiate, and then make sure you get somebody who's also going to the event and bought their ticket through an official channel to show you what it looks like, so you make sure you buy something authentic.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really good tip, man. You want to roll into some final tips, final thoughts based on a little bit of research and experience from other major events?
Yeah, let's do it. So the first tip, and I really like this one, is bring some USA gear and be ready to trade it. So I shouldn't say USA gear. I should say bring your gear, because I know we definitely have a lot of international folks. So bring gear from your home country and be ready to trade with other people. That was probably my favorite part about the World Cup. I ended up swapping my USA flag after we had been eliminated. I was able to swap that out for an awesome flag from a very cool guy from Ghana. And there's just a ton of cool opportunities where you can meet other people. And I think that's a really fun opportunity while you're there, is certainly try and make some friends with folks from other countries and be ready to grab some gear.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the essence of the event, man. This huge global event with people from everywhere. The next thing is, it seems obvious, but just budget extra time if you actually need to be somewhere. There's no better place in the world than Brazil to just kind of haphazardly kill time and drink some beers with strangers for 30 minutes to 10 hours or whatever it is. But if you need to be somewhere, don't be afraid to get there early, because most likely there's going to be a very friendly beer vendor or somebody opening up shop where you can hang out, meet some people, talk, toss some beers back or whatever you prefer to drink. And like I said, Brazil is a great place to kill time. So time will not be wasted if you get to the event even an hour and a half, 2 hours early. Just an opportunity to tailgate with some interesting people.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So the final tip is to make sure that you don't bring any unnecessary valuables out when you're going to be at an event or in a place with tons of crowds. Just like anywhere else, petty theft is a real concern, and the Olympics is sort of a special case where there's going to be a lot more people that aren't necessarily well prepared. So I think you can avoid any bad stuff going on just by taking the small extra precaution of paying a little bit more attention in crowd, and don't bring anything that you don't need. So, whenever I go out in one of these things, you don't take your whole wallet with every credit card that you've got on the trip. You take maybe one credit card and a little bit of cash and an ID, and you're going to be just fine. And obviously avoid, showing no expensive jewelry, none of that stuff. Don't make it easy for somebody to pick you as the target for their attempted pickpocketing. Because I will tell you, I think I'm pretty clever about keeping an eye on stuff, but the folks that do it are really good. I definitely got pickpocketed in Carnival, and I had like $6 on me, and so it wasn't a big deal. But you just got to make sure you don't have anything that you can't afford losing. And certainly, I mean, I don't know, I probably wouldn't be bringing my phone to these types of events unless you really think you're going to need it.
Yeah, I mean, taking pictures, obviously people want to do that, but I mean, bring it if you need it. If you're going to be too scared to take it out, just don't bring it. And if you are going to use it, be vigilant about it. Final piece on that, I'd say, is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your goods in one pocket. I'm a big proponent of credit card in the left pocket, cash in the right pocket, a couple bucks in the back pocket. So, I mean, even if you do get dinged up, you're hedging your bet a little bit there as to having all of your valuables in one little spot.
Great tip, man. I think that pretty much does it for everything that I had to share. Any parting words for folks thinking this over?
Yeah, absolutely. The only advice I'm super, super confident giving is if there are people that want to go and they have the means to go and they have the time to go, but are worried about logistics, crime, or other fear factors, just to go. It's going to be a great time. It's just a bunch of fear mongers. It sells headlines. It sells news. If you take care of yourself and you're vigilant, like we said, you should have no issues. People travel there all the time. There's 90-year-old couples that travel there and have a great time. So you can too. If you can do it, just go.
Awesome. And if you want help getting there with points, you should check out our Earn and Fly travel packages. It is a done-for-you service. We'll tell you exactly which cards you should get, help guide you through the whole process of earning the points, and book your ticket for you. There's tons of time to get this done if you get started now and be able to book your ticket well in advance of the Olympic Games. So if you're looking to travel and you want to spend around $50 in taxes and fees instead of $1,000 or more for your round trip airfare, that is definitely the way to go. And you can find that at abroaders.com/earn-and-fly.
Sounds good, amigo. All right. Well, we wish all of you the best of luck and enjoy it if you happen to go.
Thank you for listening this week. This week's track is Mais Ninguém by Bandel do Mar.
Mesmo que não venha mais ninguém, ficamos só eu e você.
Hey Brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.